Hiya folks, Doc here. It is a beautiful September morning here at Area 51. It is in fact September 11th. On this day 15 years ago, a lot of innocent civilians and a lot of professionals lost their lives to a heinous terrorist attack. Now, as you all know, I'm Canadian. Don't for 1 second think that that action did not affect me deeply, that it did not affect all Canadians deeply, that it has been forgotten by anyone up until and including Canadians. I know some of my viewers are actually young enough that they don't remember it, so you have to rely on word of mouth and, you know, the history books, however edited they may get. But, well, the words that I have for the perpetrators of that heinous act are not something I'm going to repeat on my channel. I think everybody gets the idea. My feelings are very strong. My allegiance to my American brethren is very strong. So let's just say that they are not going to win no matter what they do. We're going to stand strong, we're going to stand fast, and we're going to give them all a big shite sandwich to eat in the end. Anyways, that being said, we're here to talk about the Diesel Weasel today. Progress has been progressing, and the Weasel is weaseling on. Let's have a look at what I've been getting accomplished so far and what's left to be done. There she is in all of her glory. Alright, where to start? Well, tires, I suppose. I was trying to find some fronts that would complement the rears. I didn't want to spend a ton of money. I wasn't having a lot of luck finding what I wanted to find. So I decided to change tacks, and I put the rear tires on the front, you know, pulled them off the rims they were on, mounted them to the front rims, and I've got them there, as you can see. So those are your Carlisle 480 by 8, 16-inch tall trailer tires. Now, in the rear, I wound up cruising through Kijiji, and I came up with some golf cart tires. And I'm really digging them. They're 18 by 8, 50 by 8. They've got a good look. They've got a great street pattern. They almost mimic a cheater slick. I'm kind of digging them. Now, what I did was I took them off the rims that I got them on. The rims that I got them on were a 4-on-4 pattern, and I could have used them. And they were 8 by 7s. What I've got here are 8 by 6 Douglas aluminum junior dragster rims, and because they're an inch narrower, what they did was they basically increased, I did some measurements, they increased the height of the tire by about 1/2 inch, so they made them slightly taller and they made them slightly narrower. They pulled the section width in by about 1/2 inch as well. That helped buy me a little bit of clearance around the brake caliper, which you can see is fairly tight. But I like the look of the tire on these rims a little bit better. I mounted one and inflated it and kind of did a comparison, and I like the way they sit on these rims a lot better. So there we have it, folks. 18 by 850 by 8 golf cart tires on 8 by 6 Douglas Junior Dragster rims, aluminum. Alright, so anyways, that's the rims. Now, get a look at this. That is a genuine Steam Whistle Brewery's tap handle. Now, that's a local brewery, so any of you outside of Ontario, or indeed outside of the city of Toronto, might not even know what Steam Whistle is. Frankly, I'm not much of a craft beer drinker, but that is an awesome tap handle that I picked up from a restaurant I renovated a few years ago. And I just thought that looked the part. So I've got basically a stainless steel arm that I had to do a little bit of rebending and refabricating in order to actuate the brake with. And there's the brake master cylinder as it was. And I made a plunger out of a bolt and a stop out of another bolt. So that right there is the brake, this nice long arm. See, a lot of hot rods and rat rods especially have nice long shifter arms that cause you to, you know, require you to reach up. And because this thing has no shift requirements, I decided that's how I was going to actuate the brakes. So that great big dirty long handle with the Steam Whistle tap handle on it is the brake handle. How do you like them apples? Anyways, I think it's pretty cool. Alright, so moving around a little bit more, I decided to use that Kubota air filter box. It's that cylindrical canister right there. And I just made up an adapter. I can get the hood open here. There's the intake adapter. I know it's not a great shot of it because the hose is already on it, but what the hell, you get the idea. It's just a piece of tube and a flange that I welded together and cut to shape and blah 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 going into the intake. And that piece of flexible pipe there is old school carburetor stuff. It used to be, some of you older folks will remember that there used to be a heat shield around the exhaust manifold on your car, and then this flexible metallic tubing would go up to the bottom of the air cleaner, and that would provide the engine with, you know, hot air on a cold start. So that's what that is. That's heat stove pipe. Now, the real cool what did I do to the Weasel so far happens up front. There we go. There's the personality of it. So, in no particular order, that transverse semi-elliptical thing that I've got there is in fact the main leaf spring from a trailer, and that kind of mimics the buggy spring on some old hot rods and rat rods. And the secondary leaf of that very same leaf spring is the front bumper. So there you go. I'll just go over top a little bit here so you can see that it's got that nice curve to it. That works. So I just had to trim those frame horns a little bit to make that happen. And then I took those 3-inch halogen headlights that were on Mule 2, and I drilled a couple of holes in the leaf spring and mounted those on there, and I think those look pretty cool there, and they scale out nicely too, being only 3-inch. If they were much bigger, I think they would have looked out of scale. And then I've got that sprocket in the center there because, well, frankly, I need a sprocket ornament. Now, what do we have here? Teeth. Yeah, those teeth are 100-plus-year-old nails, you know, the old square profile forged nail type of thing. They're actually cut nails. They stopped forging them, you know, what, 150 years ago and started just doing cut nails. But they're the same style as the forged nails, and I did some demolition on a 100-plus-year-old building a couple of years ago, and I saved a big fistful of nails, thinking that one day I'd get to use them somewhere. Well, here we go, I get to use them somewhere. So that's the business end right there of the Diesel Weasel. I think it looks pretty mean. I'm trying to figure out what to do to make those teeth stand out a little bit more. I might paint them and then re-weather them a little bit so that they've got some contrast without, you know, brilliantly standing out. But I'll work on that later. Okay, so if I can turn your attention to the whiteboard here, I've prepared a to-do list basically of what mostly is left to do on it, and there's actually quite a bit left to do on the Weasel here. This is in no particular order. This is just as they came to my mind, which is sometimes scrambled, go figure. Okay, so battery and wiring. The battery has been something that's been plaguing me from the word go, because of the fact that obviously I need something with enough crank amps to, you know, get that diesel turning, higher compression and all that stuff. So I think I've come up with a battery solution. I'll just keep the lid on that one for the moment. So battery and wiring, the idle and kill system, as you've seen on some of these diesels, because of the fact that they're Chinese and there's a little bit of manufacturing variance, my throttle mechanism doesn't quite work like Todd's, like Fearless Fronts, where, you know, you take the screw all the way out to, you know, drop it down and shut it off. I did see how he set up his idle and kill system. I had something a little bit fancier in mind. I'm not sure it's going to happen, so I'm going to keep plugging away at that. Anyways, I have to come up with a way to let the engine idle and then ultimately kill it. And I've got to be able to do it in a fashion that, you know, I'm not endangering myself doing so, and that I can kill the engine in a hurry in a crisis situation. And I have to do that for two reasons. Number one, my own personal safety, and number two, of course, the ATLTF build-off rules require it. So, I mean, if it wasn't for the fact that I don't like dying, I'd still have to do it. Alright, so the body tub is just basically loosely screwed on right now. I've got to get that thing braced up and take all the flop out of it, and I've got to get it properly mounted. That's no problem. Install new front wheel bearings. The original bushings in those old Sears wheels were shot to death. The wheels were wobbling around like blah, 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 blah. I've temporarily put in some low speed like wheelbarrow wheel bearings just to hold the damn wheels straight and to hold them on, because you know I'm going to be working on steering and alignment and all that, so I need something to hold them straight. I'm going to order up some high-speed bearings so that, you know, again, I'm not going to kill myself. So install new front bearings is on the list, no problem. Widen the floorboards, as I think we discussed in a prior video. Right now I haven't quite got enough foot clearance for the CVT and all that stuff. I'd like to get my own stance out a little bit more. I mean, we're talking highway pegs on a Harley here. I'm going to go all spread eagle here, balls to the wall. But I do have to widen the floorboards out by a good 2 inches on either side. Brace the jack shaft. When I was playing with chain tension, I was noticing I was getting just a little bit of flex out of the jack shaft mounts. That doesn't surprise me too much because it's just a pair of uprights at the moment, so I've got to brace that and take the possible slop out of it. Chain tensioner, that speaks for itself really. There's a couple of ways that you can do that. One of them is to slot the axle mounting holes and then just bring the axle backwards to take up the tension. I may do that, or I may install a tensioner. I haven't decided yet. Obviously, slotting the axle mounts is simpler and requires less equipment and, you know, ultimately less cost, so I might do that. We'll see. Belt and chain guards, that's pretty self-evident. Obviously, I don't want my leg chewed up or have anything, you know, come apart and fly apart and, you know, take my man bits apart or anything like that. So, belt and chain guards. I have to redo the steering. Obviously, I want to re-engineer it with some quality Heim joints. The factory steering gear itself is actually in pretty good shape. I may or may not wind up replacing a couple of bushings. Overall, it's pretty good and I'm pretty confident. But the rod ends, like usual, factory lawnmower crap. And I mean, this stuff is, oh god, it's older than I am anyway. So those factory rod ends got to go. I'm going to get some half 20 Heim joints and swap those in, build a new tie rod, build a new drag link, and call that good. Fuel filtration. I still don't have a fuel filter. I've got to engineer one into the system. Piece of cake, but it's got to be done. Exhaust system. Obviously, I still have not completed the exhaust system. It's you know, I've got the routing more or less figured out. That's kind of a piece of cake, but it was lower on my priority list. Taillight, yes. Seat. I need something to sit on. That tub's mighty uncomfortable, and I'm going to need some back support too. So I'm going to engineer a seat and upholster it with, I'm not sure what yet. Decorative rat touches. I'm not done yet. Okay, you saw what I've done to it so far. I'm pretty happy with what I've done to it so far. It needs a little more rat in it. How much rat in it? Only you older folks will get that reference. And paint finishes. Okay, so I'm going to paint the wheels, and they're likely to end up red, as you know, some of you are already aware. That's kind of classic hot rod, rat rod stuff, is the red wheels. I'm probably just going to go with the red. It's not incredibly creative as far as, you know, me thinking outside the box is concerned, but I've done so much thinking outside the box that there's nothing in the box, or at least very little. Paint finishes also are probably going to include a clear coat to preserve the original patina on the hood, as well as any other decorative paint-related finishes that I can come up with. I still haven't figured out what to do with that black body tub. I may leave it as such, or I may repaint it and then, you know, artificially weather it, artificially rust it, artificially age it, just so it matches things a little bit better. Not sure yet. Open to suggestion, open to ideas. If you've got them, throw them out there. Anyways, that's probably not a conclusive list of what's left, but that's kind of what I've got at the moment. Well, folks, that about takes it for this Diesel Weasel project update. As you can see, I didn't get a ton done, but I got some good progress along. You know, the project is still moving. And thanks to the weather we've had, look, this has been the hottest summer we've had on record. Thanks to the weather, I haven't gotten as much done as I would have liked to have. That said, I'm still going to get done on deadline. I should actually have this thing moving under its own power and for all intents and purposes complete in the next few weeks. I'm doing what I can anyways. I'm trying. And, you know, just get to the other projects when I get to them. Then again, that's kind of how I work, is I put things aside, get to this, put that aside, get to that. This time around, obviously, I've got a deadline, so I'm going to stay on the damn thing. But in the meantime, here it is. Oh, I can't wait to drive this thing. I think I'm going to have to wear a helmet. Awesome. Cheers. Oh, frig, I'm too old for this action.